Listen up, everyone. We have it all right here on tape.
Bitch, I felt like Tony Montana!
Why don't you just give me a bottle of scotch and a handgun to blow my fucking head off?
Look, I really wanted to like this movie, but goddamn.
That shit is a 2-pack of ass.
One Battle After Another, the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie, is a prime example of how to fail by prioritizing message over means. What I'm saying is that it fails at getting its political message across effectively because it first fails at presenting itself as a story. Also, if you couldn't tell, if I sound a bit under the weather, it's because I am. It's really hard to separate this movie from its politics, because politics is the movie, largely. The whole point of the film is to instill messages of persistence and activism, the generational fight against authoritarianism, and we got some old reliable systemic racism sprinkled in there. But for a second, I'm just going to go ahead and put that all on the back burner so we can talk about why this fails as a film. Since I don't think anyone wants to hear another random guy's political opinions on the internet, I'm going to talk about the aspects of the film I liked first just to get those out of the way. The first thing is the humor. The movie is genuinely hilarious when it wants to be, to the point where I wish it was just a comedy first and a political thriller second. I think of a few scenes in particular that got me. The first scene with Leo and his daughter in the future, the "what time is it" running joke, and every single scene with the Santa Claus cult. All of those made me laugh out loud in the theater, which I almost never do. I also like how the racist assassin guy wears a Patagonia vest. That's just kind of hilarious. If you know, you know.
It's not that hard. They, them.
Okay, I just want to be polite.
No.
That is not the shot at that moment.
That's a horrible shot.
I also loved some of the cars. I'm not even a big car guy, but the moment I saw a beautiful Hellcat product placement, I took notice. The acting was really good, especially from Leo and Sean Penn. Sean Penn is so good at playing characters who keep a lot under the surface, just like his portrayal in Mystic River, which is, of course, another overrated snooze fest.
And a handgun to blow my fucking head off.
And it makes sense he'd be good in that kind of role, because he's also a tool in real life. I appreciate how this was somewhat an allegory for families being separated by the government, something that has been happening for longer than I've been alive. But if I don't care about Leo's relationship with his daughter, then that whole allegory falls flat, which it does. And yeah, that's about everything I liked. Oh, I also like Benicio del Toro. He was the only character who actually accomplished anything throughout the runtime.
Courage, Bob. Courage.
That's it.
So what did I dislike about the film? Well, mainly, it boils down to the fact that the movie doesn't make us care about any of the characters or their relationships, which is kind of important, I would think. Look, I don't give a shit about the political relevance or themes. If a piece of fiction can't make me care about its characters, then what are we doing? Literally, the first thing you have to do is give your audience a reason to care. It gets to the point where I'm not even sure which characters I'm supposed to be rooting for. Like, there's a character who sexually assaults an old man, has sex with said old man while she's in a relationship with someone, has a baby, then gets jealous she isn't getting enough attention, abandons her baby and boyfriend, kills an innocent person, and then decides to let a bunch of her friends get killed or put in jail in order to save herself. And like, I'm pretty sure this movie expects us to like, or at least care about this person, because she narrates the whole film, and the ending is dead ass one of our characters reading a letter she wrote to her. That character just has no redeeming qualities. I mean, goddamn, the first action she takes is recreating that one Homelander arrest scene from The Boys. Homelander, probably the most evil and blatant allegory for the American right I've seen in any form of media, at least outside of this film. Oh yeah, and that is a literal sex crime, by the way. Part of the definition of sexual assault is, quote, coercing or physically forcing a person to engage in sexual acts against their will, end quote. I know no one cares if Sean Penn gets SA'd because he sucks, but in the movie, her sexually assaulting this guy is what indirectly leads to the whole rest of the film happening. And it's not just her. Leo is the main character, and other than him being somewhat relatable and funny, I don't give a shit about him. I'd like to think he cares about his daughter, but they only share like one scene together. And instead of spending more time developing their relationship, we're instead forced to spend time with some fuck-ass characters no one cares about, like the daughter's friend group who gets a surprisingly large amount of screen time, which is probably why no one does anything. Again, like I said before, the only one here who does anything is Benicio del Toro, and sort of Sean Penn. Our protagonists don't push the plot, they just hang around while the plot pushes them, which is why, when the plot needs to be moved forward, our characters either have to do something completely idiotic, or just suddenly start knowing important information out of nowhere. These reasons are ultimately why the messaging doesn't work for me. I wouldn't say I agree or disagree with the politics of this movie, which is kind of the point I'm trying to make. This movie only works if you already agree with its messaging, and it doesn't have enough in the tank to really convince you of anything. I'm genuinely curious if this film changed anyone's mind about their politics. I'd be really surprised. I'm sort of indifferent about most political issues, so I should be the target audience for this film. I would like it if it were able to change my mind or give me some new insight into these issues.
There's nothing.
Thank you, son.
The most groundbreaking and nuanced take this whole movie throws at you is that authoritarianism is bad. It's almost comedically surface level. We get an actual ending monologue which literally spells out every single theme the movie is trying to force onto you. It's so basic. This film has no game whatsoever and doesn't have the heart, the passion, or anything that comes with it.
And you're asking me whether they gave up too much? Please.
Sicario is an example of a film that tackles similar issues in a similar way, and they also both have Benicio del Toro. But where Sicario works is by making us care about the characters in the story first, and then hitting us with the messaging. It is also a lot more realistic and serious, and just a better film overall, so I'm more inclined to take its messaging seriously. But one battle after another doesn't do nearly enough to make you care about the characters, so the only way you can possibly care about them is if you share their politics. Let me explain how this kind of messes things up. If you already agree with the political messaging of the movie, then what is the point of the movie? The purpose of this kind of film is to give new insight into an issue, and tell a story that makes us care about the issue and the solution. So it's futile to watch something you already agree with, but the only way this movie works is if you already agree with it. That misses the whole point of telling fiction this way. You have to tell a story that instills a sense of emotion and logic which helps your argument. But you can't do that, no matter how valid the argument is, if the story on its own is mid as fuck, because that's what the story is. Mid. And people are labeling this movie as Brave, or the most important movie of the year. I feel like I'm in an insane asylum, because I'm sorry, but in reality, as someone who lives in the real world, this is actively moving us backwards. This movie is not brave. You know what would be brave? Is if Leonardo DiCaprio got in front of the camera and screamed, "F*** for 2 hours straight. That would be brave. That was real emotion. That was just off the top. That wasn't even part of the script. Okay, I lied. I'm going to talk about the politics for a second. I'm not trying to go all poli-sci major on you, but this sort of echo chamber, preaching to the choir behavior that both sides of the political aisle are guilty of, has been pushing people away from them. You think won by a landslide because the average American likes tariffs? Are you shitting me? There was a general fatigue of left-leaning ideals, and movies like this, whose most complicated take is that white nationalism is bad, just feed into that general fatigue and push away anyone who isn't already on board. The timing of when this movie came out is actually uncanny. I feel like in my lifetime, there's never been a moment where political violence, also known as terrorism, has been more relevant alongside the sketchy shit the government is doing to try to curb illegal immigration. Sketchy, also known as illegal. I'd almost feel bad for the film because I can already tell it's going to make headlines for being so polarizing, but the studio executives are probably looking at that with dollar signs in their eyes. There's a 110% chance that Fox News is going to try to rip this film and its messaging to shreds, the key word there being try, which is something I will not be watching because I don't have any interest in subjecting myself to this CIA torture technique that is willingly watching Fox News. But also, this movie makes it a little too easy, since the film directly glorifies and promotes political violence, and every character is either a far-left extremist or a far-right extremist. There's no in-between. While the politics of this film are definitely relevant, the black and white way it's presented makes me think the filmmakers live on a completely different planet than I do. The film refers to Leo's group as vigilantes, revolutionaries, but never terrorists, which is what they are, by definition of course, and is what they'd be called in the real world. If you're gonna make a political movie, I would recommend making it at least somewhat realistic. Even fucking Zootopia got this right. Furthermore, and this is just me, but I also think it's kind of hilarious that the biggest anti-capitalism movie I've seen in a while is chocked full of product placement. Wow, I sure do love Modelo, said no one ever. Be a man and drink a blue moon like the rest of us. I think it's kind of funny how the main thing separating the two cult-like terrorist organizations in this movie is just that one of them happens to be racist and has been around for longer. I also think it's funny how this writer's biggest fear for someone is them just having a normal job. Like working a 9 to 5 in their headspace has no meaning whatsoever unless you're changing the world. And I had nowhere else to put this, but while we're on the subject, I'm pretty sure Leo's character is a self-insert from the writer-director, because Leo's name in the film is Pat, and the writer's initials are PTA, which is an anagram for Pat. I feel like Dokes. I can't prove this. It's just a hunch I have. But, like, come on, right?
Thanks for supporting the bowling team.
Fuck you.
And just to wrap things up, as always, just remember that if you disagree with me, this is not just my opinion, this is the truth. You'd be arguing with facts, which means you're delusional and mentally ill. I'd recommend you seek some kind of professional help in that case. But that's all I got for you today, fellas. Thank you for your time, and have a good one.
What the fuck did I just put myself through?
This fucking thing.